Hello everyone, my name is Kelly Johnson and I work in the curriculum team at NCFE. This webinar is for the Level 1/2 Technical Awards in Performance Skills. The plan for this webinar is to give you a basic overview of the V Cert qualification, the externally examined assessment including key dates and recent information, the Synoptic Project, which is the internally assessed coursework and how to assess it, and finally a summary of the resources that are available to help and support you. Let us begin with an overview of the V Cert Level 1/2 Technical Award qualification. The Level 1/2 Technical Award is a vocational qualification which is designed to be completed by Level 1 and Level 2 learners. So if you have a mixed ability class, they will be taught the same content. The grading covers Pass, Merit, Distinction and Distinction Star at both Level 1 and Level 2. The Level 1/2 Technical Awards consist of an external assessment worth 40% and internally assessed coursework worth 60%. The content of both will cover Level 1 and Level 2 learners. They will be given the same exam and the same synoptic project. The external assessment is an invigilated exam paper and is on a set date and time lasting an hour and a half. Whereas the synoptic project coursework is in supervised sessions instead of being invigilated, and there is no set date or time, but there are deadlines to meet. Learners have a maximum of 21 hours to complete the coursework, and it is open book, so learners are allowed their teaching and learning materials, internet access, etc. You may be familiar with this chart that shows how the V Cert grading matches with the GCSE grading. Level 1 goes up to a maximum of grade 3, equivalent with a distinction star. The Level 2 distinction star is equivalent to a maximum of a grade 8.5. The Department for Education has set this maximum as they want the top grades, i.e. the 9s, to be academic GCSE achievement only. V-Certs fit into the open group or third bucket for performance points. This group can hold up to 3 qualifications depending on the qualification size and/or its weighting, etc. V-Certs can be delivered alongside other qualifications, but please do bear in mind the discount codes applicable to each subject area. So for example, if you were doing a traditional GCSE in drama, music or dance, and we're also delivering our technical award in performance skills with the same learners, then only one of those will count in the performance tables as their content is similar. Next, we will have a look at the external assessment in a bit more detail. Unit 1 has 48 guided learning hours, which is important to consider if you are delivering to Year 10 or if you are delivering to Year 11 for the first time. The exam lasts an hour and a half with a total of 80 marks, and there are exam opportunities in November and March each year. So if you were beginning with Year 10, then it might be best to have the exam in March of Year 10 or November of Year 11. The reason for this is because there is only one resit opportunity available. If you are beginning with Year 11, then I would recommend having them sit the exam in November so the resit is available for them in March, but this will all depend on how much contact time you have with the class. On the exam timetable, it will also tell you the cut-off date for registering your learners for the external assessment, and this is usually about 2 weeks before the exam. Please note there is a late fee if learners are registered late. And lastly, whichever exam they perform better in is the grade that counts towards their final grade. The Level 1/2 Technical Award covers 5 assessment objectives. The first 3 are about using and demonstrating knowledge and understanding, and it is these that will be in the external examination. As mentioned in the previous slide, the external assessment will cover the first 3 assessment objectives. For performance skills, 45% of the marks in the exam are for recalling and showing knowledge and understanding, whereas the higher order thinking of analysis and evaluation will account for 25% of the marks. This allows the assessment to cover both Level 1 and Level 2 learners, and the style of questions is a mix of short answer, multiple choice, and longer response questions. There are three main types of questions on the external assessment, and where possible, they have been set within a performance skills context with real-world case studies. The first type of question is multiple choice, and they are usually 1 or 2 marks. Multiple choice questions cover assessment objective 1, like this one from Performance Skills, where learners need to identify one expressive skill. The second type of question is short answer, and they are usually around 4 marks. Short answer questions such as this example ask learners to explain 2 responsibilities a singer could have to make sure that rehearsals go smoothly. The third type of question is extended response. Extended response questions are usually worth 6 marks or more. This example is a 9-mark question which asks the learner to evaluate the potential costs and funding sources for a tour. Next, we will have a look at grading. I'm sure many of you might be familiar with UMS, the Uniform Mark Scale, but if you're not, it's a method used to standardise the marking of papers across multiple exam windows by converting the raw mark out of 80 into a UMS score. The final grade in the external assessment is determined by converting the raw mark into a UMS of 160. A minimum of 24 UMS is needed to get a Level 1 pass, and a minimum of a Level 1 pass is required in both the external assessment and the Synoptic Project to obtain an overall grade. When we look at the grade boundaries from the most recent assessments, in most cases the recall of knowledge from Assessment Objective 1 would have been enough to secure the learners a Level 2 pass. The grade boundaries can be found within the Chief Examiner's report, and as you can see, they are slightly lower in November 2020. COVID-19 and a move to remote delivery in the spring and summer term could account for such a difference. Now I'll go through the Synoptic Project. The project itself, since it's synoptic, must have all the content and assessment objectives delivered prior to the beginning of the project. The project can only be done in the learner's final year, the year that the learners will be certified. Learners have a maximum of 21 supervised hours and must be undertaken independently. Formal supervision is required. No feedback or guidance can be given to the learners at this point. The project can take place during the regular scheduled lessons, or a centre can block out time for learners to complete it. NCFE set the assessment so the tasks and brief of the Synoptic Project itself are unable to be changed or altered in any way. Any research the student carries out must be suitably acknowledged or referenced, and it can be used to assist them with the undertaking of the project. They can also use any of their teaching and learning materials from lessons, etc., but these materials cannot be submitted as evidence. Learners can adjust and change their work, but not if it is because of feedback, hints, or guidance from the teacher. And once the Synoptic Project has been completed, their evidence must be stored securely. If this is on an intranet system, it must be in a secure and protected file, and the learner log completed to validate the work. This next slide is an example Synoptic project from the Performance Skills V Cert. It's had a scenario of being required to plan and realise a live performance event with departure as the theme. The brief included the task of demonstrating their skills in a pre-production role, a solo performance, and an ensemble performance lasting 2 to 5 minutes in length. The evidence that had to be provided was a video presentation, including the roles you would undertake, a baseline skills assessment and a rehearsal plan, a technical plan for production, a promotion plan, and promotional material for your target audience. The learner log is something the learners must complete during their project. They will keep a record of different activities they did and the resources and time dedicated to it. and at the end they will evaluate their project, as this will allow learners to achieve Assessment Objective 5, which is to manage and evaluate the project. From the 5 assessment objectives mentioned earlier, the Synoptic Project covers all of them. However, the biggest focus of the Synoptic Project will be on Assessment Objective 4, which is to demonstrate and apply technical skills and processes. For performance skills, Assessment Objective 4 is worth 45% of the final Synoptic Project grade. When it comes to assessing the Synoptic Project, it should be done holistically. You will be judging the project as a whole, and it will be assessed against each of the assessment objectives. Descriptors have been written for each assessment objective, and assessors will use the grading descriptors to determine the banding decision for each assessment objective. The students will also be able to see these grading descriptors as they are on the Synoptic Project brief. There are 4 bands that can be awarded: Not Yet Achieved, Band 1, Band 2, and Band 3. To determine the grade achieved for the Synoptic Project, you can use the grading calculator on QualHub. On here, you can place the learner's name and place the band achieved against each assessment objective. This will then calculate the grade achieved for the Synoptic Project. You can see that with Learner A, the bands they achieved were a 2, 2, 2, 1 and a 2, giving them an overall grade of a Level 1 distinction. Whereas Learner B got 2s for every assessment objective and got a Level 2 merit overall. This shows how important Assessment Objective 4 is. That is the only assessment objective that Learner B did better on, but they jumped up 2 grades. Before you can let the learners know their grade, the work needs to go through the internal quality assurance process. As our mission is to promote and advance learning, we have several resources available to help and support you with that. The key area for support will be QualHub. Qualhub.co.uk will be your primary go-to where you can search for all our qualifications and access to specification, assessments, teaching materials, regulations, and much more. Begin typing your qualifications subject area and it will give you a suggested list of qualifications, or you can simply type in the qualification code. Let us begin by focusing on some of the teaching materials that are available on QualHub and are free to download. We have schemes of work which completely outline entire units of work based on 1-hour lessons. There are also individual lesson plans for each presentation with suggested timings, lesson aims, learning outcomes, and suggested assessment activities. We have complete PowerPoint presentations covering the teaching content from the specification and includes teaching activities that could be used with your learners. And finally, there are individual worksheets to accompany the lessons, or they can be used as homework or flipped opportunities, whatever you decide. As with all these resources, it is best to use them and adjust them to suit your learners. Using actual assessment material is a really good way to make revision effective, and the material I'm going to show you now is also available on QualHub at no extra cost. For every qualification, you will find past papers and sample exam papers. You will also find mark schemes, and they will say which assessment objectives are being addressed by the question. Furthermore, the Chief Examiner's report, which can be found in assessment materials on QualHub, does provide an insight to how learners perform nationally on the different questions. So, for example, which questions had strong answers, which were answered incorrectly, and what were the common errors, which can help inform your future teaching. We also have past and sample projects which can be accessed. Unfortunately, we don't have any sample portfolios for performance skills. We were going to use the 2020 learner work that was submitted to produce some, but COVID-19 prevented the submission of the performance skills portfolios. Another useful tool which is part of the NCFE group is Skills Forward. They are one of the UK's leading e-learning software and assessment solutions for functional skills, GCSEs, apprenticeships and employability skills. The unique assessments, resources and summative assessments can transform how education providers approach functional skills, GCSEs and the employability skills development of learners. In terms of the V Cert though, the most useful part of Skills Forward is probably the skills portfolio. Skills Portfolio allows learners to submit evidence and keep records of their work, which will allow centres to manage, monitor and assess their learners remotely. The assessor is also able to upload evidence for the learners too, for example, witness statements for the internal assessments. It can allow for easy management of the quality assurance process and complies with Ofsted and the Education and Skills Funding Agency requirements, giving you the evidence needed during inspection. Aside from the skills learners will gain from the V Cert, we have also developed a suite of resources to support the wider curriculum and skills learners will need. These include 32 sessions, each lasting 2 hours, and they cover personal, social, health and economic education, study skills, employability, and career skills. These packs can be found within teacher materials on QualHub. We have now reached the end of the webinar, so thank you for your time and I hope you have found this useful. If you do have any questions, then please do get in touch anytime with me directly using my email, kellyjohnson@ncfe.org.uk, or if I'm unavailable, our general email is curriculum@ncfe.org.uk.